phones are doing. And this is where I would say Samsung picks up a bit of steam, because I would say they also win when it comes to zoom, too. I remember when the S24 Ultra first came out, not being particularly impressed by zoom, but it seems like updates since that launch have brought it back up to scratch. Both phones have a 5x optical zoom lens, but Samsung's 5x is higher resolution, and it also feels like Samsung knows what to do with it better. It feels like they're not afraid to really dial up the software processing on images when you zoom in a lot, which not everyone's gonna love, but I think it's what these images need. We even tried a concert environment, and can you see how when you get super up close that there's not actually much more information being captured on the Samsung? It's just correcting the image way more aggressively and confidently, and it makes it better. Not to mention that Samsung also has a second zoom camera at 3x, which just helps to keep zoom shots high quality throughout the entire zoom range. And also, as I've alluded to earlier in this video, Samsung just gets portrait mode. Apple was the first company to do any kind of portrait mode well, but you can just tell that in the meantime, Samsung has really invested energy into making sure that their portrait mode becomes something special. It's got that magic combination of realistic background blur that doesn't feel like too much and gently gets more blurred as objects get further away, with extremely good reliable edge detection and colors that pop. The key caveat is that these portraits were taken on the 5x zoom cameras, which favors Samsung because they've got a better one. When you take portraits using the 1x main camera, then Apple does gain a big leg up because it can shoot 24 megapixel portraits instead of Samsung's 12. But I do think that portraits in general do look better when you're more zoomed in. So this one's for Samsung. Now, just before we get to the crowning of what is going to be my new phone, we need to talk about core photo quality and night mode. So the main change to photo quality with the iPhone 16 Pro is the new 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera. And it was definitely the thing to change since this is the one area that I felt it was weaker than the Samsung in. But on first glance, there's not really a massive difference between the two, unless you specifically use Apple's high-res 48 megapixel mode. But if you do use that, then yeah, Samsung just can't keep up because its ultra-wide is only 12 at maximum. Now, using the high-res photo mode, which Apple calls HEIF Max, is not without compromise. It means that photos take a bit longer to capture. It means you don't get live photos anymore. And high-resolution photos also take up more space. But here's what I think Apple's done really well. I think the photos still capture fast enough, and Apple's HEIF file format is actually so efficient that a 48 megapixel shot on this takes up like half the storage of a 12 megapixel shot on this. So they've made it convenient enough that I will actually just keep HEIF Max on by default. And so the iPhone does become the much better ultra-wide camera for me. And that's mostly true for the main camera too. Technically, Samsung destroys Apple in terms of resolution. Samsung's main camera is 200 megapixel, Apple's is 48. But then when you really boil it down, the best photo quality that Samsung can take without some sort of major compromise in terms of processing quality or capture time is 12, whereas Apple's default is 24. You can take every normal photo on the iPhone in 24 megapixel without needing to change any settings or think about it or sacrifice anything. And that, I think, is a massive perk. And yes, you can, if you want to, take a 200 megapixel photo on the Samsung, but it's kind of like the whole 8K video thing. There are situations in which it will be amazing, but only in absolutely ideal conditions. More often than not, I found that the iPhone's lower resolution shot will still look better. So I'm giving the category of photos to the iPhone. It's not a blanket win. There are absolutely times when I think Samsung has made someone's face look better or has a nicer pop of color, but if we're going on averages, then 70 to 80% of the shots the iPhone takes